to the video. Today we're going to be talking about that popcorn line I was playing before over the blues changes on that jam track. Popcorn guitar is rooted back in the old R&B school of guitar playing. Guys like Curtis Mayfield, Memphis Soul, like, Steve Cropper, that type of music, those guitar players of that era from that style, they're the guys who came up with popcorn guitar, and lots of folks up to today borrow from popcorn guitar. I mean, Hendrix did it, Stevie Ray used popcorn lines at times, Clapton, Jimmy Page even has used some popcorn type lines in the tracks on Led Zeppelin and things and all that too. So a lot of folks are hip to it, and it's a really cool thing. And one of the other cool things about popcorn guitar, just that it's cool to know it, is that it's a real good way to get out of the way when you don't want to take up too big of a sonic signal or a big sonic imprint in the mix for the music. Whether you're playing out live with your band or you're in the studio, you're writing a song and you're mixing it down in the studio, all those things. Now, if you want to get something that stays out of the way but contributes to the music, popcorn lines are really cool, and we're going to discuss them right now. So let's get down to the fretboard where good things happen, and I'll show you how to play those lines, and you can pull that into your playing right now and start popping some popcorn just like the pros. Okay, so there's two basic approaches for playing popcorn lines. The first is using a scale, and then the second would be using a chord. So the first pass on the video, in the beginning of the video, I used the scale approach, and I was using scale tones and outlining a popcorn line that way. And for the second pass in the beginning on the jam track, I used the chord approach, using chord shapes, seeing the shapes on the fretboard. So, okay, the first popcorn line, we're in the key of C, so I'm up here at the 8th fret, and I'm thinking about, in this case, I was thinking about a Mixolydian scale. Okay, and if you don't know a Mixolydian scale, it's okay, you can stick with the video, it's all good, don't worry about it. Check it out. I'm going to show you how to do it, but I was using basically a Mixolydian scale off of each root note. So C, F, and G notes, in this case, for our blues progression, Okay, but there's your roots, right? So, okay, Mixolydian's line for the C, right? How to play the first line is this way. You hit the root note on the low E string at the 8th fret, and then you're going to hit the octave note, right, here on the 10th fret of the D string. Now, everything's always muted with popcorn lines. Right? But the line is low E string, 8th fret for the C, root note on the low E string, to the octave note, 10th fret of the D string. Then, you get your palm mutes on, right? So, right, and then we stay on the D string for the 3rd note, which is here at the 8th fret again, like the low E string note was. So, that's the first part of it. Then the second part, right, just go down the line from the 10th fret of the D string, right, hit your octave again, low E, 8th fret, 10th fret D string, 8th fret D string, down to the 7th fret of the D string, right? And now the second chord is the same as the first, it's only, we're just doing the same thing on different strings. We move up to the root note here for the F on the A string at the 8th fret, and we do that same move, the octave, right? Jump over a string to the G string, so hit that G string at the 10th fret, then go down to the 8th fret on the G string, right? Right? of course, you're following the chord changes, obviously. So when it goes back again now to the 1 chord, to the C, go back, do the same thing off of the 1 chord, C in this case. The low E and D strings. And then for the 5 chord, we're going up to the G. So hit the G root note here at the 10th fret of the A string. And this I just stayed between when I did the octave, right? Go to that 12th fret of the G string down to the 10th fret G string, right? And then just go back. So I'm going back and forth on this chord between the G string on the 12th and the 10th fret. Then down to the 4th change. We're following the progression, right? And we'll follow the progression with your popcorn lines. And then back home to the root. For all those lines, I'm thinking of this little Mixolydian scale. That you play off the root note of each of the chord changes, which in this case, obviously, right? C, F's, and G's, right? So. So you get the idea, just follow the chord changes, okay? Now, so that's the scale approach, using a scale, okay? The other approach is going to be thinking about the chord shapes and playing notes off of the chord shapes. Now, the shapes that I was envisioning, that I was seeing for how to base my popcorn lines in this case was off of the big old C7 bar chord here at the 8th fret. Okay, that big C7 bar chord that we all know. But I focused in on just 2 strings of that chord shape, which are basically the 3rd and the dominant 7 of this chord, C7 chord, right? I'm not playing any root note now on this one though. I played a root note for the other line, but this one's a little different in this case. I'm not starting on a root note. I'm actually starting on the 3rd of the chord, and I'm going between the 3rd that is here at the 9th fret of your G string. And then I was going to the 5th of the bar chord that lives in the big old major bar chord, but we wind up covering that up when we play the dominant 7 chord is C7, but we're going to it anyway. We're using that note that lives here, that's off of just our big old C major bar chord in this case. And for the 7, you put pinky here at the 11th fret of your B string, and you have that C7 bar chord. So we're looking at this little part of the chord though. It's all off the chord. So right? So 8th fret of the G string, going to the 9th fret of the B string. Right? Now I was going back and forth between this, 3rd and 5th of this C7 chord, the C chord here, and then hitting that dominant 7 and popping that in there at the end, and going back and forth between these 3 notes. Right? So that was the first chord. Then for the 4 chord, the F7 chord, I'm seeing this shape right here, which is just your big old bar chord here, for an F7 at the 8th fret with a root note on the A string there, right? But there's a chord we all know and love, right? That 7 chord right there. So right? Now, I did some regular F and some dominant 7. I mix and match these things kind of as you feel. There's no particular order that you have to play these notes in. Generally, the rule is this. If it sounds good, just roll with it, and the more you do this, the more you start hearing things. But I was just going between a triad, that F triad, which is, these three strings, that D string, G string, and this B string up here, at the 10th fret. And then sometimes I throw that dominant 7 in there, right? Right? And then on the 5 chord, it was basically the same deal. I was looking at the bar chord for G7 here. And I know that, of course, there's G major, but, you take that note out and just go with the bar back there, and you have the G7 chord, for the 5/4 change, just go down 2 frets, roll the whole thing. It's basically, for that G7, everything's here between the 10th and the 12th frets. There's the triad for your G, but that would be your G7, right? So I'm going between both of these shapes, thinking of both those chord shapes. So it's pretty straight ahead, but as you can hear, it's pretty interesting. You can come up with some neat lines. A lot of cool things you could do with popcorn lines, but in a nutshell, that's how you do it. Now, you can do this obviously with any key, any chord. It doesn't have to obviously just be a blues and C. I mean, it can be any type of country you could use this in, all kinds of styles, funk music. Funk players do popcorn lines, big time. Any of the funk from the 70s and the 80s and those old school funk bands, Parliament, Ohio players, stuff along those lines. Those guys were heavily into popcorn, and you hear it a lot with their approach in a lot of the music with that style of music. But all out of the R&B school though, rhythm blues and that old Memphis stack soul stuff. It was all a lot of popcorn lines. It's like guys like Cropper and Curtis Mayfield were laying down, and cool stuff. So that's it. There's your 2 approaches. Very easy to start pulling this in once you have a guideline like this. You can start getting really creative and come up with all types of things for your popcorn lines. Like this. Here's some examples. So our chords are just, 1, 4, 5, right? C7 to F7, C7, G7, F7, back to C7. Key things to keep in mind are that you want to mute your popcorn line. Right? Muting, think of scales. You could think of whatever scales you know. You could do popcorn lines out of pentatonic scale too. Popcorn guitar is a really good technique to have in your arsenal of guitar things that you can do. Comes in really handy for rhythm parts. It comes in really handy for accompanying, supportive guitar parts, in a song, any arrangement you might have with a song, or if you're jamming at the mic. And quite frankly, what if you had an open mic, and there's like 4 guitar players? I've seen this happen, and everybody's trying to make all this big sound, and sometimes the best thing to do is just get out of the way. You're contributing, but it's not big, loud, and too busy in any way sonically or, any of that, but It's a powerful technique. So if you haven't done so already, make sure that you go ahead and hit that subscribe button and definitely tick the notification icon so that you're the first to know when new content is uploaded to the channel, and I'm posting weekly. So you don't want to miss out on all the good stuff. Be a part of it all. Okay, and there is a link in the description to grab this jam track that I was using in today's video. It's free. Go ahead, hit the link, grab a jam track. All right, we'll see you again next time. Thanks for being here today. Keep rocking.